5 minutes from now. All history is a current event. So without any further ado, because the sun is already hot, that's why Baba Rashid pulled up and said he can get a gallon of water off my head. Just salt water. You drink salt water?
No, I'm not interested. I'm not really interested in drinking your head.
I know you are.
I
was just
hot.
Right. That's all I was.
Yeah,
just saying.
it's definitely hot.
I was using your commentary as a means of
greeting everybody.
So we are live on WRFG Atlanta 89.3 FM. This is the Ancestral Rock. Serious times we in. To date this interview, of course, y'all are gonna be hearing it. With those of y'all who are not live with us, you'll be you're tuned in with us on Thursday, July the 7th. And can you believe it's already July? You know what I'm saying? Like it was literally Christmas, Kwanzaa, about 2 days ago. And but here we are. So, you know, a lot of people are saying the time is quickening, and however you stand on that, whether you see that metaphysically or some other kind of scientifically or whatever, emotionally, I think most people would agree with that. But we want to talk about serious business. And again, I must say that we're here as a solution-based radio station, a solution-based radio show. So we're grateful for the opportunity to be here today with one of the elders in our community that I have a lot of respect for in terms of his experience, his knowledge base, you know what I mean? And he got jokes too. He got a great sense of humor. He got a great sense of humor. All right, so this is Baba Rashid Nuri. I'm not going to read his bio because, as I say every time, we'll be sitting here for the rest of the afternoon just doing that. I want to point out that he is the author of Growing Out Loud, a great book that I had the opportunity to read. I read most of it. I skimmed some of it, but I read most of it, you know, I must say, for full disclosure. And I've had the honor of working with him for many years, you know. And yeah, we're just going to talk about food. We're going to talk about food, which, as the scriptures say, is the staff of life. So, Baba Rashid, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Ras Kofi. It's nice to be here. Nice to be with the folks that are listening to us.
Absolutely.
It's hot.
It's hot.
And it's been hot.
Been hot for a minute. Right?
For a minute.
So, yeah. So I want to just start with that basic question, the basic premise that I kind of framed as the question for our interview. Food crisis or nah? We have some folks that were chiming in on Facebook. Some say it definitely is a food crisis, or there's one coming around the corner. You know, there's a lot of talk about that. And you know, for full disclosure, I'm really a proponent of speaking life into a situation. You know, and that does not mean not being realistic. You know, as Confucius says, I know you know, the beginning of wisdom is calling things by their proper name. So we don't want to, you know, we ain't trying to skirt around nothing. And at the same time, there's two different perspectives to everything.
Oh, there's more than two.
More than two?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the question is there a food crisis?
Is there a food crisis? Or is there one coming?
Well, that totally depends upon how you define it. Just to be very honest about it. There's plenty of food in the world.
What you're hearing is the chickens behind us, and if it's a food crisis, I might need to put them back in the pen.
Absolutely. Even some of those our vegan friends.
Oh my goodness!
If there's a real food
right. They'll change their diet.
Yes,
right?
Yes, they will. You know, what I have learned, my experience is that there's plenty of food in the world. Mm-hmm. Now, you've had many places in the world over the last quarter century, half a century, where people have been dying because they didn't have enough food, and it's a political issue. Food is a weapon. Food has been used as a weapon throughout history, and if I have control, that's why I tell people, whoever controls your food controls you. And this is why it's so important that we attain food sovereignty, food self-sufficiency, and that's the work that you're engaged in and I have been engaged in most of my life is how we're going to provide for ourselves. So, and then you contrast that with, you go to overseas and you see these people in Darfur, many other places, they're having this problem up in the Ukraine right now, where the people can't get food because it's not, they don't control it. It's not sufficient. Another problem is you have so many people that move to the cities. And in a place like Darfur in Sudan, they got them sequestered in concentration camps. So there is a problem, but lies the source of the problem. Today, you go to the best stock, all these grocery stores, grocery chains. I've been shocked over the last 6 months to walk into these places and see the shelves empty. It's just amazing to me. I mean, the highest end food, highest cost of food in this city is Whole Foods. They just keep their shelves just stocked. The produce section is stocked. But today you go in there and a lot of those spaces are empty because they can't get stuff in there. And it revolves or evolves around a lot of issues that have to be considered. The cost of transportation has gone up. So much of the food that we eat in this country comes from California, the fresh food. That means you got to put it in a truck or a train and get it here. And the trucks and the trains have not been running with the same level of efficiency and consistency that has been in the past. All right, you couple that with the problems that the U.S. is having with China, okay? The isolation that America has attempted to put on China, so much goods and services, goods and products come from there, they can't get here. All right, they're having trouble getting to here, getting off of the dock. So it's a very, I don't know if I want to say complicated, because it appears to be simple. It's the politics that are creating the problems, and I mean that's the learning that I came up with in my studies as a younger man, and have seen it come into play. It's the politics that create the disparities that you find around the world. Right. Who controls your food controls you.
That's the bottom line. So let's walk through that a little bit, Baba, because you just gave us a whole history lesson right there, and there's so much to unpack there. I want to start with asking you, in your lifetime, have you seen this before on the level that we're seeing it now?
Well, it hasn't got as bad as I think it's going to get. All right. I've seen it. If you remember the last time, a few years ago, when Trump was in, he put that boycott on the Chinese with the soybeans. Well, I didn't get a big reaction out of that for me personally, because I've seen it before. And I guess that's the beauty you alluded to at the beginning of this conversation. That's the beauty of living as long as I have, by God's grace, right? To be able to see these things come around. And Jimmy Carter put a boycott on the Russians that began January 1980. Okay, it happened to be the first day I went to work for Cargill. So I saw it all unfold. All the executives of the big ag companies, Cargill, Continental at that time, all of them, ADM, they flew to Washington and said, what we going to do? We have contracts with the Russians, and you tell us we can't deliver this grain to them. So the government said, we'll back you. Here's what we'll do. Since you had these contracts and you've accumulated this grain, we'll buy it from you. So the grain companies got paid once. Then they turned around and said, well, government, you own all this grain and it's in our warehouse. Who's going to pay for the storage? So they got paid twice. Oh, wow. We're not done. We're not done. Then when the price dropped, they said, we'll buy it back from you. Okay? We'll buy it back. They got it at a lower price. Okay? Then they were able to put it, after the boycott was lifted, they put it on the market. But the real deal is, all the grain contracts that the U.S. companies had with the Russians were delivered out of South America. So they got paid 4 or 5 times on that. And that's unfortunately is what we see in so many situations. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. They
time and time again.
Yeah.
So it almost becomes cliche, but as you're pointing out through the study of history, it's real. We hear that word a lot, and sometimes we just kind of get numb to those things because they're repeated so often,
Yes, sir. And that's what happened with what Trump did. When Trump banned the Chinese, the farmers had the problem. Their prices got dropped, but the grain elevators still got paid the same thing, and they just go bring that grain from someplace else. China got too many people to let them starve, so they gonna eat. They got their soybeans; it just didn't come from the fields. In the U.S., the price dropped. Farmers were struggling. Okay, and these are the things that you see. You know, and even a bigger issue that I think that we need to consider. Let me back up just there. It is important that people, significant that people recognizing that the food in the stores is disappearing. Okay?
So that's just not a kind of flash in the pan. That's just not kind of circumstance. It's all being blamed on the war in Ukraine.
Well, the war in Ukraine, what's happened, those are those areas where so much of the grain that's traded in the U.S., in the world, comes from there. So it's more than just that. They are backing up, those grain elevators are getting full, and they're backing up commodities over there. But it's much bigger than that.
So help us to understand that what is much bigger. I mean, you've already talked about, you know, you quoted Henry Kissinger, and you know that's something that I heard it first from you years ago.
Which one was that?
Who control the food, control the population. Yeah. You know, so that's a basic premise on the chessboard, you know. And then you started talking about China and transportation costs. So that don't seem to be an honest assessment. Would seem to take us beyond Ukraine. It feels like this is a boiling point. It's something that's been happening for a while. Because for instance, people like yourself, people like, you know, Kashan, people like Eugene, people like myself, for generations now, really, honestly, I'm just naming people in the last 10, 15 years that I've come across would have been saying, you know, let's grow our food because it's not going to be, what about if Kroger shut down? What about if Kroger shut down? But a lot of times that becomes, that again, that sounds cliche. It's like, okay, here go these conspiracy theorists.
You know, I'll take you back to an incident that happened to me in 1973.
The year I was born. Take me there.
Juana Trujillo Vega was a classmate of mine at the University of Massachusetts, where I went to grad school. And I raised that question, what are you going to do? Well, here we're in Atlanta. What are you going to do if Kroger closed? He said, well, I'll go across the street to Publix.
That was his answer.
That was the answer. So, you know, it cracked me up 50 years ago to hear that. Because
it make you cry now though when somebody hear that.
Yeah. Kroger and Publix all get the food from the same place. Right. They ain't no difference between the thing. So this is the misunderstanding that people have of how the food is moved around the world. And I just forgot the question you were asking.
No, I was just saying in terms of right now, you know, I just want to start unpacking a little bit more about what in your estimation has caused this. You also said, it's a two-part question, so I get a chance to reframe it. I'm going to reframe it even a little deeper. You said, you made a kind of prediction, a predictive statement. You said it's not as bad as it's going to be. I tend to shy away from talk like that only because I feel like there's so much fear that's pumped into the population all the time. However, at the same time, we need to be realistic. You know, we need to be clear about what we're dealing with, and then eventually talk about some solutions.
Here, we start with a cliche statement: think global and act local. Okay, and I call it a cliche because you hear it put out there quite a bit. But what does that actually mean? We got to stay focused on where we are, what we're doing today. And today will take care of tomorrow. You made a statement earlier about how, I think it said, about how time has passed and this is already in July. And it's a scientific fact. The older you get, the faster time goes.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm getting younger.
No, I'll give it to you. How old? Thank you. I got a 5-year-old grandson. 1 year is 20% of his life.
Have mercy. I got a 4-year-old, almost 4, and
it's a quarter of his. 1 year is a quarter of his life. And you tell me, how old are you now?
49.
Really?
Yeah, just turned 49.
I know you well, I know. Well, congratulations. All right. But 1 year is 1/50th of your life. 1/75th of my life. Scientifically, 20% is much larger than 1/50th or 1/75th. That makes sense?
Yeah.
All right. So I can remember when I was in high school, man, to wait 2 weeks. You gonna tell me I gotta wait two weeks?
An eternity.
Yeah.
Or even spatially. I remember the yard I grew up in. My mom, God bless her soul, she had a green thumb she inherited from her mama, and she went down to that yard. It was not more than like a 1/4 acre lot. But in my mind as a child, this was
huge. I had to say,
I could get hidden. I could hide in all the trees and hide from the whole world and all that kind of stuff.
When I was in junior high school, I lived up in Linda Vista, San Diego, where he and I both have some roots.
Yes.
And we had a corner lot. Corner lots are always bigger than the other one. And we didn't have power mowers. We had to push them. And if you wanted to clean along the fence, you got some clippers to get out there and cut. Man, that yard was humongous. Humongous to my teen self.
Right.
And I went back some years ago and looked at it. It's just a postage stamp.
Right.
So things change with time and our perceptions and the experience. Right? So, by God's grace, I get to talk about what happened 50 years ago with personal experience and knowledge. And it's changing. Now, let's get back to what we're talking about. The U.S., one of the reasons the U.S. has fought all these years to keep the dollar as the international medium of exchange, okay? Because they're controlling the medium of exchange. But that's changed. That was the Bretton Woods Convention up in New Hampshire, Vermont, up in New England that they did back in 1945 after the U.S. won the Second World War. They said, okay, we're going to take over the economics. And they made the dollar the international exchange. It was originally tied to silver and gold, and they took that away. So the U.S. now, literally took away gold and silver as the underpinning of the financial system. You used to have printed on your dollar. If you're fortunate enough to go get one, it'll say on there, this is a gold note, this is a silver note, but now it's a Federal Reserve note. So what that means is that they can go print all the money that they want. It may not have any true value.
It's like people say it's worth tissue paper at best.
And it's enforced by a gun. U.S. has the largest military there's ever been. Got over 1,000 military installations around the world to control their attempt to control what's going on, but they're losing it. They're losing it. So as long as all of the price of commodities, you can exchange it in dollars, but what is the actual value of the commodities that are being exchanged? With the prices going up, everything costs more. Everything. We paying $5 for a gallon of gasoline. Talked to my sister out in California, up to $6.57 they're paying for gasoline. So the oil companies are going to keep that. They can go buy some silver and gold if they want them. They do. Okay? All them people that are getting paid, those who control the means of production, distribution, and exchange can go get what they need because they just keep raising the price on us. And most of us are workers. We have to get out there and do some task every day, and it's very hard for us to keep up with inflation. And we're already beginning to see the inflation on us. And you get some trouble in the world like you have over there in Ukraine. We listen to the media in this country. They're gonna make the Russians to be the bad guys in that situation. Okay? And I don't like seeing anybody getting killed. But if you come into my house and steal a room, say this is my room now, that's gonna be a problem. That's what's happened over there because Ukraine used to be a part of Russia.
Period.
Just really that simple. So don't misunderstand me. Sometimes I get in trouble. I'm not.
This is the troublemaking show. So it's
fair enough. I'm not condoning anything that Russia has done.
Right.
Okay? But
just putting it in context, in human context, in terms of human reflex.
And all we hear is the U.S. media and their portrayal of it, they just getting people to gang up. Russia's been doing a terrible thing over there. When you stop and consider, the U.S. has been doing the same thing
for years. So I want to ask you to do something, Baba. Just some basic definitions. A lot of words are thrown around, and a lot of people repeat them. You know, we're in a social media age where we just kind of regurgitate what we hear and don't even understand. So for beginners, recession. What is recession?
When the economy slows down, a recession is going to happen. If I'm making a million tons of a product and that I've been able to sell for a long time, then all of a sudden I can only sell 750,000 units of that product. That's going to hurt my pocket. I won't need as many workers. It just makes it much more difficult to maintain the same standard of living that happened before the recession began. Prices are going to go up because there's not as much to go around. If I have a product that I sell for 5 units, $5, because I was producing 1 million units, if all of a sudden I only have 750, they won't raise the price.
Simple. Inflation.
The recession is the economy backing off. Inflation is the additional costs that have to be paid. So they're tied to each other.
Okay. Give me a little bit more on that. The additional costs that have to be paid because of the economy back, like more seller than buyer, as they say.
Yeah, that's going. If you have more sellers than buyers, that's going to lower the price. If you have more buyers than sellers, that's going to raise the price. Okay, so the recessions, when the economy slows down, I'm not producing as much as I used to. The inflation is going to be how much more you have to pay. Okay, so the gas price is inflated. Okay? In fact, more specifically, last year oil cost around $50 a barrel. Now it's over 100. Okay, so that the production cost, the cost of the gas and all the other products, is doubled. The cost to the producers, and they sure going to pass that price on. So there's inflation.
You're tuned to WRG Atlanta, the Ancestral Rock. We're here with Baba Rashid Nuri. We're in the midst of our summer fund drive, FUN and FUND. We're raising money for our station because you're not going to get this type of commentary on a commercial radio station. Just like Baba Rashid just said, you know, how the inflation and recession are tied in together. You know, corporate media and the warmongers are tied in together. That's just the reality. You know, I remember Max Robinson, rest in peace, made it clear to us before he transitioned that all the major networks sit together, like we sit at this table every evening and determine the scope of the news.
Yes, sir. And you know, my opinion, I was there.
You was there.
Yeah, you was just a child when that happened. Max Robinson got sick and died quick.
Very quick. Yeah.
Because of all the newscasters, he's telling the truth and raising those questions. Now, back in the day, 50 years ago, Walter Cronkite was considered the senior, most reliable in America. Listened to Walter Cronkite. If he said something, they took it as the truth, because he would not waver in the consistency of his analysis. And when he thought it was getting too one-sided, he quit. The man who went, McNeil
Lehrer?
Yeah.
From Jim McNeil.
He did not register to vote. He wasn't even ready, because he wanted to have his commentary and questioning and news reporting to be as objective as he could possibly do.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
I grew up listening to him, you know, because I had to watch PBS. I had my mama made me do an analysis of all that kind of stuff before I can go out on the weekend. I couldn't go party in San Diego before I did
That's part of why reason you are as astute as you are, Kofi, because you had that kind of training. You came from a home that insisted. Your mother and your father, they weren't going to let none of y'all get out in the streets without no sense.
Right.
And whether you chose to accept what they were teaching, that's another thing.
And apply the sense, right. That's something different.
Yeah,
that's real.
Yeah. So yeah, that was his attitude back then.
So again, we're exploring the whole conversation of a food crisis. I want to now go to a little bit deeper into what you were saying in terms of how bad you think it may get. A lot of people, I mean, I have not, as again, you and I have worked side by side for years. I remember when Queen Yen and I took over this land where we are right now, we call Shamba. 2 days after we had a soft grand opening, a global pandemic was declared. And that was the first time I saw the fruit of our years of labor in terms of, attempting to convince our people to return to the land. We were aware, for instance, that there's a cultural divide because a lot of African people have experienced trauma on the land. That's why every time I get on there and I talk about, food, I gotta give credit to Sister Leah Penniman for when she penned that book, Farming While Black. She had a profound quote in there that said that the earth was the scene of the crime, but the earth was not the criminal, or the land was the scene of the crime, but the land was not the criminal.
Yeah.
And that's something so profound to have to speak, or to be able to speak to black people who got generations who had to flee the South because, Grandpa got lynched for speaking up to the Klan, or, you know what I mean? All of that.
Leah, she has a twin sister.
I didn't know. I didn't know she had a twin, but I've imagined that from time to time because I've seen a picture of somebody else. I'm like, they look just like her. Okay.
She does it. Leah, she is so bright.
Yeah, that's a serious book.
And, she and I have done several programs.
Mm-hmm.
She told me, we were down at Shirley Sherrod's place down in Albany. And she got my book there, and she said she read it twice, right? Immediately back to me. She read it on the plane, and when she got home, she read it again, which is a real compliment to me from somebody for whom I have tremendous respect. She's good. So yeah, we don't blame the land. See, let me tell you how I feel about this whole climate change and so forth. The Earth will change. Now, humans can contribute to the changes that the Earth made, but if you stop and consider that the glaciers were all the way down here in the United States at one point, and they've backed up. So there's a certain amount part of Mother Nature, Gaia, that we have absolutely no control over whatsoever. Okay? But we have to live within the context that we're presented with.
So then, okay, I want to push back on that a little bit. I want to land on my point in terms of, when we were talking about
Please do.
How we got, how certain things happen that provide the impetus for people to get more serious about getting to the land. That was my whole point. So that when COVID hit, that was the first thing. We had to change the crop plan and everything. I started going south to get seedlings. Started, propagating the information about, low light plants that are easy to grow inside your windowsill and everything. All of a sudden, instinct kicked in because no one in our lifetime has thought about a global shutdown.
Well,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but
you're wrong.
A global pandemic.
Let me try it another way. Those of us who may have been around a little longer, okay, can see a little further.
Clearly.
All right. So the principles that underlay your actions at that particular time, there is no argument about it. Okay, it's correct. You need to do what you see needs to be done. But, not but, and I would suggest that the work that the pioneers have been doing for all these years was a precursor, and actually underlies what you did. Okay, you're my son, okay, and I got a father, so he could see further than I could. I can see further than you, primarily because I've lived it. I have the experience, so it's a part of what I'm doing. So the work we did right here in this field was preparation, helping to assist people to be prepared for whatever challenges came about.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
We taught people. We had classes here, right out here, showing people, grow your food, grow where you are. That's Eugene's phrase that he had on his book. Grow where you are, and that is so true. Front yard, backyard, windowsills, anywhere, so you can be self-sufficient in your food and have control over your food. Because whoever controls your food controls you. So we need to do seed saving, all the different things that we have taught right here on this land so many years ago. It's so interesting to see to relive the evolution that took place on this land.
Indeed. So, in the context of social phenomena, most of our folks are still. I think one of the things that I feel is that a lot of times the empire puts us back to sleep easily. That's a simple way of putting it. I remember people always get upset with me about this. I don't mind. When George W. Bush, they call it W, at the height of his reign, the world was pretty much fed up and ripe for revolution.
Yeah, I call him shrub.
Shrub. That's a better thing. You know what I mean? Shrub.
Yeah,
And then here comes Obama. I think to me, Barack Obama was the greatest ploy of the last 200 years.
Oh, well, look
People
here.
back to sleep.
Yeah.
Oh, now we's a part of it now. I to this day, I remember the night they called the election. Bill Bennett, who I know you know, used to be the education secretary or something. He said, I'm sitting here looking at him on CNN, and he's saying, well, that's no more talk about level playing field.
Because we got a dark-skinned
That's
brother.
what he said.
Yeah, I'm
At
sure
the night as soon as they called the election, that's what came out of his mouth.
I've heard
No more talk about a level playing field. To me, that was just, whether it's true or not, we all, it's conspiracy or whatever. To me, that was evidence of my theory. You know what I mean?
And restate your theory.
Is that Barack Obama was a great pacifier.
Yeah.
That was put in place by the empire. Because I'm one of them people like we said McNeil or Lara, one of them. I'm registered to vote, but I don't have trust in presidential politics in this country. I learned in 7th grade at a school out in La Jolla, California, that
You got out to La Jolla. Huh?
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Now I was in 9th grade out there. I learned 7th grade here at Lovett that the electoral college at best controls that election.
Can I tell them why we laughed about that?
Please do.
Yeah, La Jolla is a suburb of San Diego where all the rich people live.
Right, it's like the Alpharetta of Atlanta.
Yeah, so Kofi got a great education because white folks educate themselves extraordinarily well.
Right.
Okay, and they don't want us to be around. These things, oh, Kofi, get so much running through my head. Where you want to put the finger down?
Right.
Most black people in this country just got through celebrating Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm.
That's absurd. Juneteenth is the biggest lie that was perpetuated on black people, and black people going to jump up and down, that's when we were free. No. How you got the whole concept of a watch night sitting up was because the President Lincoln signed the Declaration. Now, what's the name of that bill?
Emancipation.
The Emancipation Proclamation in September of 1862.
Mm-hmm.
September. Then, which stated that all the enslaved people in the southern states, the Confederacy, would be free January 1st, 1863. So on June 19th, 1865, that means it was 2.5 years that they lied to all the enslaved people in Texas.
That they didn't celebrate.
Huh? Yeah.
Well, I would say I celebrate our resilience. That's the only thing. That's the thing I acknowledge with that. I celebrate. Because I've heard that question before. Why is that a means of celebration? I would say I just celebrate our resilience.
That's great.
I
hope you can get more people to understand that.
Right.
Not just make it.
Like it's Freedom Day.
Yes. But we ain't free yet.
Up to now, we ain't free.
We ain't free. So to stop to say, that's when we got nonsense. Man, they had all them slaves happy and dancing and people were glad to be slaves on them plantations. That throughout the South, that we're in the South now, and that's what they still sell. And I think most of us are getting over that part of being happy on it, because they don't tell you that. The media, history books don't tell you about all the slave rebellions.
All the rebellions that took place.
Man.
Incessantly.
That's right. Why?
Incessantly, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm sure you've talked about that before.
Real talk.
Yeah.
So again, this to bring back the focus in terms of this so-called food shortage, this global food crisis. There's some of our family online that was when I posted the picture and inviting people to tune in, they were saying that no, we don't have a food crisis, we just have a discipline crisis. How would you respond to that?
I have no idea what they're talking about. What do you mean a discipline problem?
Basically, that how I interpret it is that like Adam Clayton Powell asks, "What's in your hand?" Basically, that we have the power to control how things go.
That I agree with.
And so then if we are in a place where we are dependent on Kroger and Publix across the street, if Kroger shut down and all that kind of stuff like you just said, then that ultimately is on us. Is on the fact that we haven't taken control, we haven't really applied what the Creator has given us in terms of skill, ingenuity, all of that stuff.
All right. Let me see.
How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I'm formulating. Okay. I live here in the highest point in East Point, up on top of that hill. I happen to live in the woods. Okay, I got maybe 2 hours of sun. Where we're sitting now used to be my garden. I was out here doing all the work along with the people who help. All right, so this was my garden. I don't have.
This is where I met you.
Thank God. All right, so it's very, very frustrating to me with the history that I have, that I don't have that garden anymore to work in. But to where I think you were going with your point, we grew the food out here. We fed the people. There used to be a big tree right over here underneath it. And at that time, this is when we began on this site. It was one of the largest markets around. Okay, and they moved downtown East Point, so we joined them down there. And TLW has evolved as it has, and we moved because we weren't making bread, we didn't have honey, and people could get a greater variety of stuff at those markets. Me personally, all this doomsday conversations, we've taught thousands of people how to grow food. I mean, it's my children and their friends. It's expanding. When we had this market under the tree, you had trouble finding any market around town. Never mind, now today there's one every day of the week, and they have them they're bringing food out to the train stations to help people. So our consciousness has expanded. We used to have a man who was as regular as a heartbeat to come down here from up in Gwinnett County to buy our food every Wednesday. Yeah, every Wednesday, because it was clean. It tasted. He said there was no taste comparison at DeKalb Farmers Market for what we were producing, and that makes sense because we grew it over here and we sold it over there. You can't get any better than that. So we were creating a solution. We taught people and trained people to grow their own. My attitude still remains, as long as I'll avail myself of the opportunity to go to the grocery store. But if the grocery store closes on me, I got a basement full of beans and rice. I got water in my basement. I got a stove to cook it on. Okay, and hopefully I'll have some herbs still in my cabinet to season it up, so I don't have to eat just plain beans and rice. And that's my way of trying to protect myself and those close to me with the future.
So our word to the wise should be sufficient. That's a page out of the book of a man who's lived enough life to understand the writing on the wall. So stockpile.
I'll give credit where the notion first became clear to me when Mr. Muhammad taught us that. This is back in the both Kofi and I are Orthodox Muslims at this point. But for me, it was the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that got me started to thinking differently than what I had been taught all my life in this education system in the United States.
And what are some of those things? Rehash those for those who don't know. Believe it or not, a lot of people in this modern time are not familiar, especially the people that we are really reaching out to.
Oh, man.
Just simplify it for us, a summary of some of those things, those relevant teachings that you got from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Do for self. Put that at the top of the list. Do for self.
And that covers a whole lot right there, right?
Right. And the manifestations of that is growing this food here. I had it as it came to me, and God gave me my vocation to pass it on to as many folk as I can, produce the food, and in case there's a disaster, I got beans and rice in my basement, okay, and water, and it means to cook it. I got enough to share for a little while, and I want to help my brother. Given a choice between buying food from white folks or buying food from black people, I'm going to see my brother. Okay, that's where I'm going to go. And a love for us, and a turning away from that which has not been healthy for us. That's simply as I can make the principles that I got from the Nation of Islam. And
I remember I posted on my social media page. I don't even remember the name of the movie. With James Earl Jones, he was a preacher, and he was talking about, he had I guess one of his lieutenants. He was walking him around the town and saying, what you see there? He said, I see, I see business exchange. What I see is black folks spending with people who despise them. They take our money, but they don't even, the man behind the counter threw the money down on the counter. He wouldn't even give
it into your hand.
Right. And then, so he was a preacher, so he went into the congregation the next day, he started talking about how, I don't want to mess it up and try to quote verbatim, but he was talking about it, for instance, to prove how easy this is. I grew this in a small plot of land at the parsonage, these carrots. He pulled them out in the pulpit, and I kept the roots and the tops on them to show that they're not store-bought, And I noticed a lot of y'all were looking at my shoes, at the beginning of the service, and wondering why I didn't have shoelaces. I'll start wearing them when Negroes start producing them.
Ooh, when you remember the name, I don't recall that, Kofi. I'd like to see that.
I'll send it to you.
I had a conversation just this week with somebody about Huarache sandals. Come from San Diego what a Huarache sandal is. All right, and for those of you who don't have a clue, this is what the Mexicans wear. They get a car tire that all the tread is gone from, cut it out for the sole, and then put something on top to hold that onto their feet so they don't have to walk around.
The Maasai people in Kenya and Tanzania do very similar. They make their sandals with old tire rubber.
Do they?
Sure.
I hadn't seen that one.
Some of them, yeah. Different parts in the world too.
Yeah.
So, Baba, we're talking about a food crisis, and I want to stay on that theme just because. And where I want to go now is in terms of solution. You've already kind of alluded to the fact as simple as growing our own food. Now, how would you prescribe the average person listening to start that process? That's part one to the question. Let me just leave it there. How would the average person that lives in an apartment building, that lives in a skyscraper, that doesn't have access to the land that some of us have access to start that process in terms of doing more to secure their food?
What you can tell first, grow where you are. You can always grow something. Put away some food, some dry food. If you can't do that, put some extra cans up in there, so you can have. So when things get shut down, which they inevitably are going to happen, it's going to happen. Think about all we have. This country has the best infrastructure of any country in the world. But I know how many hours I've gone without electricity at my house, no heat at my house. And imagine if the entire place shuts down for a long time. What you gonna do? So you got to think global, act local. Okay, what you gonna do if the electricity goes away? That it's not. You can't go to another power company. There's only one. If Kroger shuts down, it's highly unlikely you can go to Publix because they're getting their food from the same place.
So what would cause a shutdown like that? What could theoretically cause the whole place to shut down? Because again, I'm asking that question for full disclosure because a lot of times that sounds like just some conspiracy. It just becomes something that's mundane in our mind. Okay, that's the shutdown talk over there. No, we're in the greatest democracy in the world, blah, blah, blah. What could cause
War.
this place to shut down?
War. American English is spoken all over the world. The U.S. has conquered the world and has been dominating the world for a long time. But what you need to understand is that America rose to a position of power and authority faster than any other empire. 250 years, America got to the top. I think the top of the American, I just lost the word, but American control was
the peak.
Reached its peak under Bill Clinton. Right now, for younger people, that's ancient history. But I worked for Bill Clinton. I was there. And I think America reached the height of its empire that time. And then things have been going downhill. We got a 20-year war in Afghanistan, and America crawled off from underneath it with tail between their legs.
And how, I don't want to cut you off, but I got a follow-up question to that is in terms of how do you know that? I mean, the average person is not hearing that narrative. What, some very practical ways, how do you stay tuned to that? Other than having lived enough to start understanding trends and all that kind of stuff. For a young person who hasn't had that blessing of living long enough to see things go around in circles, what are some ways that you pay attention?
Me?
Yes. That you get this information.
Read.
What do you
read?
Read what?
Read. Just read. Okay? And then with that, what reading will do, let me do a little spiritual thing here. Surah in the Quran is called
Iqra.
It's also one of the chapters in my book. And that's when God told Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, read. He said, I can't read. What are you saying, man? He said, read.
Creation.
All right.
Read the sign.
George Washington Carver was one of my heroes. He would go out and just listen to the plants, let the plants talk to him. And, most food scientists now want to go out and tell the plants what they want the plants to do. And, they can get some modifications, but if you listen to the earth, it'll tell you what it needs, when it needs it, and how to approach it if you listen. If you pay attention, open yourself to that kind of exchange. So what do you read? Brother, I started reading at 3. Praise due the Most High, to give me the ability to do that. And I grew up in an environment that allowed me to do that.
It was cool to do that.
In my house, yeah. That's what I did. That's what I did. And as best I can recollect, I started reading back in when I was a child. Okay, well, I'm talking about back in the 40s and early 50s. The Sunday paper had pages of cartoons. And pages. Y'all may get one page now, but we had pages of it in color every
By
Sunday.
the time I came around, they had a cartoon section.
Yeah.
The Sunday paper had a cartoon section.
And I think that's where I actually began. Because you see the pictures and the words, and you can, and just get a little help with the words going. But you got to read. You got to read. That's so important. Even if it's reading nature, you got to pay attention to what's going on around you. But today, with so much information available to us through, I mean, newspapers and books are becoming falling off because we got a computer.
Yeah.
The problem with the computer, it needs electricity. If it turn off electricity, you're in trouble.
Right. I remember one of the principals I worked under at Frederick Douglass High School. He was talking about literacy and how to kind of giving some words of encouragement to teachers who were having trouble pushing that. And he was basically saying that his mama coming up, she let him read the Playboy magazine. She knew he would look at the pictures, but Playboy magazine was known to have a really strong literary section.
Content. Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
That's a good one, man.
You know, so I mean,
That's a good one.
however you get it, but the point is to read.
Oh, yeah, you gotta want to know. You gotta be able to. You know, I had an experience over the weekend. This young lady and I were in a place, and I made a comment to her, and she didn't understand what I was saying. So she clammed up and blew me off. Before she left, I told her, sister, I'm sorry if I offended you, but that certainly wasn't my intention. And you know, I don't go around insulting people directly. After I watched and heard her talk to the folk in the store, I realized, to use Miss Muhammad's phrase, deaf, dumb, and blind. Okay? Deaf, dumb, and blind. And unfortunately, that's where so many, this education system in this country and the treatment that people of color have received is to keep us deaf, dumb, and blind of all that's going on. And we got to get past that. That's why it's so important. You know, my children, God bless them, and I told them when they were coming up, the only responsibility you have is to go to school. Now, you got some chores you got to do around the house, but I got you for 18 years. After 18 years, I don't have any legal connection with you. You're getting out. You're welcome to come home anytime, as long as you follow the rules in the house. So every one of my children, God bless them, they've all gone to college. And when they finished college, they came home for a little while until they didn't want to follow the rules. And then they went on their own. You know, God bless them. And they're all doing well. But you got to put books in front of the children, put them in front of yourself first. I hope you've been through that. And then your progeny, you need to provide them with that opportunity and the shelter to be able to grow. You know, you look, one of the things that has been fascinating me, that's the right word, lately, is just watching the children with their parents. Because the parents are children. Truth is told. But you hold on to these.
Babies raising babies.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Because you're not just here. And one of the things that I've learned is you're not full grown. You're not grown till you're 40 years old. Okay? And that is true in elephants. Elephants live forever, and they keep their babies around them for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Dr. Asa Hilliard and Mama Marimba and everything brought out the whole question of, I always get the names wrong, Girisu, Benisu, I think it's Sodaye or something, about the 3 levels of schooling in the ancient Kemet. But you stayed in one school for 40 years before
you go to another.
40 years before you even were considered grown enough.
That's right.
To start learning some deeper science.
Well, that's the life begins.
And that wasn't 40 years when the tablet would recess and all that kind of stuff. This is intense self-study. So, you know, a lot has changed in terms of our, you know. Yeah, well, and we are in 2022. We're not here to beat up on ourselves. So again, the question is, ultimately, what can we do? There is a food crisis, depending on, as you said, quite diplomatically, you know, depending on how we define, I won't even say diplomatically, I mean, I think that's proper way to put it, you know, depending on who you're talking to and how do you define crisis, right? Is there one already on the land or is there one coming? You know, you've noticed things in the grocery store, and it's funny, you know, because I I realized I don't be going in the grocery store that much. And so I've heard so many people talk about bare shelves, and I haven't really seen it, you know, but I've been starting to pay attention to some things, you know.
I'll admit, I'm a food snob. I am. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there I'm just not going to eat. And I think that the most expensive store in town has the widest variety of healthy food. I tell people, it's part of the horticulture. When you go in the store, best place to get your food is around the perimeter. Okay, because that's vegetables. I mean, it doesn't make any difference if you're a carnivore or a vegan. You're going to get your food around the perimeter store. All that
Everything else is food stuff.
Yeah, in the middle of the store. And what's really important is that you read the labels on those cans that you're buying. If it got more than 4 ingredients, or if it's not food, and if you can't pronounce the words on what's on that label, don't touch that stuff. Right. So I think, this is my opinion, and everybody can. No, let me try it another way. I am so grateful that I can do my shopping at Whole Foods, because I think they have the cleanest food of any store that I've been in. Okay? And I still read the labels there, because sometimes there's stuff in there.
Oh yeah, because Whole Foods, that's a whole check. You know,
it's
and not just because of the expense, but I remember when their CEO declared that by the year 2023, all their GMOs would be labeled. He ain't saying nothing about we'll be done with GMOs. This was while that whole struggle was going on in California and Hawaii. One of the most expensive elections to date domestically. You know, about forced labeling of GMOs.
Yeah,
you know,
and so, the industry won.
Yeah, the industry definitely won. They, you know, Monsanto and everything paid for these billboards that would have different elements from the periodic table and say, tell your children that chemicals are natural. Propaganda. Yeah, that's
the lies that we're told.
You know what I'm saying? But the whole point, you know, I want to bring this up because you mentioned something, because I'm still thinking about all that's going on with this climate. You're sitting here on a piece of land where, you know, for a blessing that is approaching, that's already been granted, I had to pull all the drip line irrigation out, right? And that's just the long story short. And then here comes this 3-week drought, 90 degrees to 100 degrees with no rain, you know? But I still have access to a little bit of something, you know? We catching the rainwater over there, you know, it's been difficult, but, you know, it is what it is. But you're talking about climate change, and your premise is that it's really, you know, the climate is always changing. What I was saying in terms of go ahead.
Yeah. Humankind has contributed to the problems we have today.
Okay.
But it's not the earth.
It's not just, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Because what I was saying is, I remember when COVID hit, and after the first 2 months, that was the first time, because that was March 2020. That was the first time we had a real spring where it didn't just start off gradually cool and then spike. So by the time you're at the end of April, it's 90 degrees. I stopped growing certain type of food that I love growing because of this trend that we would have year after year after year. While under your leadership at TLW and everything, you know, pak choy, for instance, just keeping it basic, you know, food that I love to grow that I couldn't grow in the springtime because it would bolt
too fast. Yeah.
So, but I'm saying though, we started seeing a dramatic difference even with just that shutdown. And we started seeing the planet, I would say it got cooler, maybe there's another word for it, but definitely that in itself proved to me that there was a serious, profound, and a really detrimental effect that our way of life has on the planet. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I can't argue that. That humans have contributed to some of the environmental desecration that we're experiencing. But my point, I can't argue that, I have to agree with it. My point is to put it in a larger context. The earth is a living being. It's a living entity.
Yes.
It was here way before we were.
And we'll be here long.
And be here afterward. I challenge, it's not a challenge, but I point out to people, you walk downtown in any city and you see grass growing up through the concrete. Whoa.
Yeah, have you ever seen that movie Life After Humans?
No.
Oh, you gotta check that out.
I'll do that this evening.
I'm doing, I don't have any rights to that movie. I'm not commercially involved, but it's just a recommendation, something serious to see. Because they do a computer generated projection of if all humans left the planet, what the Earth is either called Earth After Humans or Life After Humans.
So you owe me 2 titles.
Yeah, either Earth or Life After Humans. So then, what they did, they were also, you remember Chernobyl, of course, which means wormwood in the Bible. This was interesting. Chernobyl means wormwood.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like the biblical thing of how a third of the sea was bitter, and But Chernobyl, for those of y'all who were not aware, that was in Russia. It was in when a nuclear reactor leaked off and something, so they had to evacuate overnight. So Chernobyl in this movie, Earth After Humans, was the only factual data that they had. And they went there. But other than that, they were doing a computer-generated thing like what would New York City look like? How long will it take with no human interaction for Hoover Dam to shut down? And all these different things. It's a powerful thing.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, it's a powerful and embarrassing as a human being. Even though I'm not claiming the ways of the Urugu, just to be a part of that, just because our lifestyle, the reality is, even these cell phones that we're using right now to make this broadcast, which prayerfully will give more light than, balance the scales, you know what I'm saying? These cell phones are powered based on genocide in the Congo. It used to be Venezuela and a couple other places they would get this coltan from. It's only in the Congo now. So I'm just saying our lifestyle, our general lifestyle in this modern world is helping to, I won't say destroy the planet, but helping to make a real toxic environment for our children.
Yes. But, when I see a blade of grass growing through the concrete downtown,
that tells you everything you need to know.
Hey, this earth is going to be here long after us. Even if some aliens come through here and just blow up, kill every human being, the earth is going to still be going around the sun, which will be in the Milky Way, going around the universe. I wish everybody could get out into a desert or a high mountain where there are no lights so you can actually see how immense this universe is. It's immense. It's mind-blowing to me every time I have that opportunity. And I've had on numerous occasions in my life. It's just immense. It really is. God is great.
Give thanks. But Baba, I'm grateful for you taking the time with us. We could be here all afternoon. I want to do like Dr. Clark saying, bring to a conclusion something which has no end. And ask you to just give us some baby steps. Again, the whole question that we put forth is there a food crisis? Food crisis or not? When I called you on the phone, I was basically telling you what I was thinking. You kind of muttered under your breath, not under your breath, like you was not trying to be heard, but you was like, we're already in a food crisis. That was your perception, if I got you right.
Yeah.
But for wherever one stands in that debate, wherever one stands in terms of their perspective on things, we're dealing with a situation where what kind of percentage would you give, if you could, in terms of the world? Let's just start with the United States. Let's not even talk about the whole world. Let's just talk about the United States. What percentage of the United States do you feel really depends on big ag for its sustenance?
Most of the world doesn't.
Yeah, that's why I had to change that question.
Most of the world doesn't. They're growing food where they are.
Right.
Hey, in this country, in Europe and in Americas, the populations are on the coast, near the water. All the great cities in the world are on the ocean. You got to remember, 75% of the planet Earth is water. Okay, only 25% is land. How do I know that? Mr. Muhammad taught me that one.
You just said something there. All the great cities of the world are on the ocean.
On the ocean?
Or at least on a river.
Yeah.
but mostly on the ocean.
Some kind of water. They're on the water that's going to allow them to get out and go see the rest of the world. So those are the folks that have the real problems. Now, Atlanta is becoming a great city. It has all the rivers. You got, right over here in College Park, you got 3 major rivers that take you down to South Georgia and eventually out to the Gulf, to the Atlantic Ocean. What was the point I was supposed to be making?
We were just asking for some baby steps. Because I was asking what percentage of this country depends on big ag for its sustenance.
Yeah, everybody that lives on the coast, East Coast, West Coast, and up around the lakes, the Great Lakes in the north.
So how can that be shifted?
Well, no, it's not. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be shifted. No, let me try it again. What is the shift is the new paradigm for food delivery. Okay, as I said, when I came to Atlanta, 06, you had trouble finding a farmer's market. Now they're everywhere. I mean, so it's no longer a movement. Paradigm has shifted. People are becoming more and more aware of their food. It's just amazing to me how many people I read on the web that are writing about food, growing it, and a lot of it contradicts.
Yeah, because I was going to say, there's somebody with boots on the ground. And I did wash my hands last night. I did take a shower, but I still, we're seeing a lot of farmers markets, but as my brother said, a lot of them are turning into craft markets, t-shirt markets.
Yeah.
We have a lot of food organizations, but most of them are not growing food. And that's not throwing any shade. That's not necessarily even a criticism. I don't mean it in that spirit. I'm just saying that's what I see.
It gives those markets give you access to people. All right, so yeah, folk that are doing other kind of stuff are going to get there. I remember Joe Reynolds gave the keynote address at the graduation from one of our classes when we were down, and he told the people, I was shocked what he had to say. It was honest truth. This work is hard. Your body gonna hurt. It's not for everybody. I mean, he just broke it down to those graduates straight up, no chasing. He's still doing the work, and many of the people who are in that class are still engaged in this work in one way or another.
So with Joe's thing, not to cut you, but I want to bring in this point. I understand where Joe was coming from. In 2022, with all that we see going on, is it really still responsible to tell folks, well, not everybody's going to do it? Because I know for a fact that most of us are only 2 generations removed from a time when everybody did it. Everybody had their hands in it, some way or other.
So let me hear the question.
I'm just asking, let me ask in a different way. Would it be responsible to update that advice to a graduating class of young growers?
What do you hear in the advice?
What I'm hearing in the advice is that it's hard work and everything, but it's not for everybody. Instead of just like, everybody needs to learn how to drink water, and regardless if you got a taste for it.
No, let me. I
know you said you don't like to should on people. I remember you said that last time. So I'm keeping that in mind, right?
let me just. He was saluting our class for doing this work. Right. But he did not want them to
have any illusions.
About it. This is hard work. Hard work. And encouraging them to keep doing it, and that's why I said he still is. Okay? So it wasn't about getting out. Let me see, this is around the time that we met. There was a young man, I'm not going to say his name, who came out to the farm. He had been not in the best position for a long time. Okay? And he said he's going to learn everything. He's going to master this subject in 3 years. Everybody that heard that fell out laughing. Huh? Fell out.
You say you're gonna master it in 3 years?
3 years. I mean, literally, he said this trying to be, I'm tough and I'm gonna get all it. And we all just cracked up. And then every time there's a new initiative, a new opportunity came, let me do that. Jumped around in every activity that there was and lasted 6 months. 6 months. So, Joe Reynolds' observation, he was just trying to give those young people a realistic assessment of where they were and commend them for beginning the process.
Indeed. I think I want to end there. I want to ask you, because as you mentioned that story, what came to my mind is maybe some of the characteristics, one of them, the character traits that it takes to really apply ourselves in this work, or just in any kind of trade, really. What would be some of those things? Give us some marching orders, if you will.
Patience, perseverance,
Yes.
consistency. Okay, you got to be out here every day. You put a seed in the ground, it's not going to come up tomorrow. I mean, it's not going to produce the product tomorrow. It takes some time. Some years are shorter, some years are longer. As you pointed out, some years are shorter, some years are longer. But the most important thing is you have to show up. You got to do the work.
Sure.
There were times right over here. I used to tell people, they say, "Oh, it's raining, Brother Rashid." I said, "It ain't raining until I say so." Okay. No,
You got to follow the track and field rules, baby. We only postpone the meet when lightning and thunder start hitting. And even with then, I love the lightning and thunder.
Mm-hmm.
I get your point.
Yeah, we would hide in I tell, no, I can't close this down because sister lady or brother man may have left their house coming down here, and on the way it started raining. Now what are they going? They're going to turn around? No, they're going to show up here and see what they can get. See if we're here, and we have to be here. All right, so it's the consistency. You got to show up every day. Whatever you're doing in your life, you have to show up every day. That's fundamental. So what we add to that, grow your own and protect your. Put away some stuff in case we have a way you can't get to the store.
That's it. That's it. We've been speaking with Baba K. Rashid Nuri, the author of Growing Out Loud.
You can buy it online.
And I heard that the new book is on the way. I want to ask you a final question. I said that a couple times, but the final question is about WRFG Radio, and it's just about the importance of community education and public education. I was asking you earlier, I wasn't even asking you as a hint to kind of give you an alley-oop to stuff that down, but that is part. We're in our fund drive right now, in terms of where you get your information.
Yeah.
So outside of the reading and everything, but just talk to us about the importance of community radio.
Oh, Radio Free Georgia, WRFG, is a very important institution, and it's sufficiently important. I've been doing a monthly radio show on RFG for 13, 14 years. Yeah.
Just Peace with Heather Gray.
Yeah, with Heather Gray.
13 years? Has it been that long?
This is 22.
Wow.
09. I started before 09.
Wow. So you started before I even knew you.
Yeah.
Now, that was around the time I met you, but I was in Philadelphia between 07 and 2010.
Time I came over to that school and recruited you when you came over downtown.
Yeah.
Kobe, I went to his classroom. Kobe teaching all them children.
Quilombo.
Yeah.
Quilombo. Freedom School.
Said, come on over here and let's work together.
Good time, good time, good time. Yeah.
Yeah, we've traveled a lot together, haven't
13 years.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, at least. God is greater. There's a Islamic phrase, Allahu Akbar, and which means which is most often interpreted as God is great. But Brother Pleeman, Pleeman El-Amin,
yes,
he and I went to college together. So he and I have a relationship for well over 50 years. And he's the one that said God is greater. And whoa.
Yeah. I mean, wherever you can think about. Whatever the trial is, whatever the beauty is, whatever it is, you can see.
God is great.
God is great.
Yeah. So it's a pleasure, brother.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Tell us about your book again, where we can buy it, and how we can tune into what you're doing now. People asking me all the time when they see me that they know our connection. What, Brother Rashid? What are you doing? How can I get in touch with him? Well,
I have the same phone number I've had since I first got to this town. Rashid at the NuriGroup.com.
That sounds like one of them big Fortune 500 think tanks. The Nuri Group.
Well, I hope I can get a nickel or two. But, coming through that. But that's the umbrella under which we do this work. And I don't work 24/7 anymore.
Mm.
Maybe 20 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
So it is a little slower.
Oh, wow.
And I still do everything I can. Anybody who knows me, when I leave you, I tell you, let me know what I can do to help.
How can I help?
Yep. And that is
I'll be a
very
witness.
Yeah. And that is my attitude. If you call me, it's fine. If you don't call me, that's on you. But I'm willing to help anybody that I can. The website is the Nuri Group. My last name is spelled Nuri, thenurigroup.com. And on there, you can buy a copy of Growing Out Loud, which is the book that I put out. You can get it on Amazon too, and in many of the bookstores. Man, I was just come back from Texas, man. That woman had a whole shelf of just black agriculture, which I was so impressed. So some of the bookstores have it, but if you buy it from my website, I'll sign it for you.
All right.
Directly to you.
And maybe we can get a copy to give away as a part of the incentive. Can I put you on the spot for that?
Yes.
So we'll do that, family, for the first person who calls in. And that's not for y'all on Facebook Live unless you're going to call in on Thursday. The first person who calls in with, I want to be generous today. So I'm going to give you just an $89.30 pledge. You have to make a credit card payment right away. $89.30, which translates to dollars a day. I mean, pennies a day, really. This for a whole year of progressive programming.
And what's really remarkable about WRFG is the broad spectrum of information that you can obtain. I don't listen to that channel 24/7, but there are, and I wouldn't anticipate that very few people would do that.
Right.
But you're able to listen to Kofi's show. He's going to give you good information. There's a lot of very good information on the channel, and I've been supporting it for a long time.
Well, we appreciate of your continued support.
And the other thing, I am working on another book. A lot of it's going to draw from
people are asking that in the comment section on Instagram and on Facebook. So go ahead and give us the goods.
I'm pulling the materials together now.
Okay.
A lot of it's going to come from. Some of it's going to come from the posts we used to do every week. The newsletters we started. I started doing a newsletter back in 2007. Okay, so a lot of the things he wrote. So the book is going to be styled like the Prophet, Gibran's book, on this, on that, and just giving my opinions about different subjects.
Yeah.
What's going
on? Yeah, we would love to hear that, because something about the farmer. Farmers have a certain type of connection with the land and therefore with creation. And, all creation is one. We know that. That's why the First Nation people say all my relations. So we might even get Baba Rashid chiming in on marriage, like the Prophet, Khalil Gibran, on relationships, on music. I know you're a music head, and all kind of stuff. So we're looking forward to that, Baba. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. God's peace be unto you and everybody that's watching.
Take care, family. We're gonna road.
You done?
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
How many